May 16th.
would you have been aware though, Glyne, who would have proposed that date? Given that you have four countries, I'm just looking at the article here actually: Barbados, Belize, Dominica, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines. I know that she has a very close relationship with Skerritt and Gonzalez.
Of
I'm
course.
not sure in terms of Belize. Um,
But the truth is that Barbados's reputation over the years has earned it a lot of goodwill and respect and leadership in the Caribbean. For example, when all this mess that is going on now with
mhm.
American warships blowing up, we remember the way they looked at Barbados for leadership when the shipwright agreement was proposed.
Yes, I remember that.
Right.
I
So
remember that.
there's that,
Yes.
and don't forget the prime minister is an all right, a very forceful personality, right? Can have things done. So I believe that and if Barbados technically, given its history, its level of development, etc., would be the leader in that. And the Barbados parent lead has leader responsibility for CSME, of which this is a part. So
Oh,
therefore,
okay.
this will fall into as further the advancement of CSME by taking the step. But the October the first thing before any preparation, any notice, any involvement, really, really start. I try to make and all they work when they work backwards, and they say no, it's on the first of October, 2025 will be the price. Maybe I'm just that is my thinking, my point of view. I'm entitled to it, but I'm trying to make sense and make logic out of it. And it really it hasn't gotten that far. That's all it can be out of it. So I just thought I would put that in the mix to see how people feel about it, whether that makes sense to them. Because I think it's off. I think it's disrespectful to Barbadians on the part of the government to take this step before have had a proper education program to explain the difficulties, the pros, the cons, the costs, the benefits, the anticipated issues. I mean, the possibilities are endless. Housing, for example. We are in a crisis for housing now, where people can't get good and affordable housing. Working class and middle class people, like that. How are we going? How will we be able to accommodate this person? Before putting pressure, the health system, educate, all the things that we depend on, transport, and what my knowledge of sociology tells me is that one way of creating they wouldn't be seen as immigrants because they're a special type of they have a special acceptance called under this regime. But one way of traditionally human behavior has been always been the same. When people feel that when people are on their home ground and they think that they need to compete with outsiders other than themselves for uh, jobs, housing, uh, wives and husbands. All these can bring resentment and feeling and cause other social problems, racial or ideological or religious or otherwise. So I'm saying that Barbarians will not have been prepared, will not have been convinced and sold. Remember how we were sold and bombarded with the Carifesta promotions? Remember that?
Yes, sir.
Every 10 seconds. Remember that? And you
I
have
do, sir.
this Tony silence.
Hmm.
Apart the puerile attempts of Mr. Ambassador Caricon and Mr. Abrams to say, it's an insult to our intelligence that nobody can sit down and come up with a document. Although I'm hearing that up to the very last day they've been trying to work out figure out how it can work. So it's 8, 9 days ago, it probably come into being, and there's still no document. How you can find a manifesto and a charter and produce all those documents, and you can't provide on a basic document like you fail to do with other legislation. What? Because this is going to mark a fundamental change in Barbados. If it really works, given the conditions, Barbados will not be the same again because we've never had this experience. And we should have been
Yeah,
prepared, educated, so we
absolutely.
can make the people welcome rather than have it thrust upon us. And if they come here, they have a resent because they're not probably anticipated and planned for. That in itself could
Yeah,
cause
could
social
be.
problems.
Well, you know,
All right.
Glyne, I mean, we've talked, and please remember where you are. We've talked about this for a very long time. I'm sure you would remember during the Arthur administration, even before that. We talked about CARICOM. We talked about the free movement of people throughout the Caribbean. I think, at least from my perspective, I think a attempt was made during World Cup. Was it 2007? I think it was World Cup 2007 to see how it would work. And to me, we've talked about it so long that we should not be having a discussion concerning policy, concerning how it would be done, concerning how systems would be aligned, and these types of things, because all the time that we've been talking about CARICOM, there should have been an understanding at some point we are going to be moving into this type of activity. And subsequently, there should have been drafting, in my view, drafting aspects of administrative aspects, legal aspects, these different kind of things that the people, and I don't just mean Barbados, all the people in the CARICOM region, because it's CARICOM, and I think now with when you include Belize, should have had an idea as to what to expect. And I sure you have observed in Europe and currently in the UK, the massive opposition to
The
the
immigrants,
literal
the,
immigrant,
right?
migrant. I think migrant or immigrant. How would you specify that? Migrant or immigrant? Um,
To migrants, to
to
migrants.
migrants, unfettered, so to speak. I mean, we've had last week massive protests in the UK. There've been massive protests and a rising resentment in Europe. And these are all examples that should have fed into
But
what
eh,
is what is happening where we are concerned.
the same thing is happening in a more extreme form in the United States. Candidates,
Yes,
this
yes,
used to be a very liberal, open policy, open door policy, has now begun to tighten its doors, etc., and its admission policies because the competition for jobs and rising
yes,
unemployment, houses again. So
mhm,
these are normal human reactions, and
yes,
they're
yeah,
factors that they're factors. People either they're push and pull factors. The pull factor are what would draw you into Barbados. The push factor what would push the people to want to come to Barbados. Once those factors align, it makes for a different thing. But I want to make say let me talk about
mhm, go ahead, go
the
ahead.
let me talk about the I will go back even past I will go back to the Federation days, right? You will know about Federation. Federation lasted 58 to 1962. Should have been born before Jeanette. You would know all these nice things, Dr. Ferdinand. And I remember I remember and this idea of one of the reasons why the Federation failed was the idea of the attitude of Jamaica, particularly Jamaica and Trinidad, that they were the big islanders and the small islanders. And the small islanders would come and live off of them. Okay. Um, Jamaica had its bauxite, etc., and size, coffee, Jamaica, Trinidad has oil and gas, etc., and pitch lake. Although I read recently that in a magazine that they only that they think they've just estimated to have only 10 years left of oil and gas reserves in Trinidad. 10 years, 10 years
Wow.
left. And what have they done with it? You know the phenomena of the Dutch disease. The Dutch disease is a phenomenon where, and I remind me too, I want to put in contradistinction to what happened in the UAE,
Hmm.
where you got a boom in a particular product, and you focus on that and neglect the rest of your development. Look at so Trinidad now will suffer in a way that
Yeah.
United Arab Emirates, remember UAE, they're also the oil giants, but they're diversified early. Of oil, they knew they may still make money, but they're not as tight as before. Trinidad has been around long enough to have done that with proper development and planned, etc. I hope Guyana does not suffer the same fate, and I look forward to some point in the future. But there will always be a place for oil. Barbados could also benefit from that, like what it seems to be offshore somewhere in Barbados. So I'm saying that this idea of an influx of in the 1950s when they had the federation, when they had the referendum in Jamaica to decide whether Jamaica would enter the federation or not. You've probably heard me say the story because it's one of my most graphic pictures in my mind. I saw a Jamaica Gleaner with a picture of a big white pig lying on its side, a Jamaica mark across the side, and then where the nipples on the mother's body would be Barbados and St. Kitts, and all the small islands were named as though second Africa. And that
Mhm.
obviously hadn't reflected Jamaica's thinking of the time,
Yes,
right? And,
yes.
so these are the old, and these things are passed on from generation to generation. The talk, the attitude, the stereotypes, the stories, and therefore you cannot always assume that these things, which can be explained rationally and logically by fact, one still have to build in the emotional part of it and accommodate for that, especially of the host country. To me, that. Let me make the last point. Why I'm harping so much on this, that we should have been prepared. I don't understand. When I was in government, when we were introducing VAT, I think the VAT had been agreed to before the Barber Slave Party came into power by the DLP, but it was something that Prime Minister Arthur agreed with, and we kept it. Because what it did was to consolidate 11 different charges and customs duty into one
Yes, I remember that. I
one
remember that.
committee. But prior to that, even some people in cabinet and the cassette were doubtful that Barbara should even implement it, should even have implemented it, should even try it, because it had a history of causing riots and overthrow of governments,
Mhm.
etc., in countries where it had been tried. But we felt that we had a good case to put that. It made sense. It was good for Barbara. And given the nature of our business, I was tasked with, I chaired a committee to sell, to sell, to prepare and sell the idea of back to Barbara. We produced programs and things in newspapers and leaflets, etc. And, and it worked. Okay, so much so that we were able to send some of our officers to Bahamas and St. Belize, etc., to help
Mhm.
them with a program to make it acceptable. So I'm saying,
Yes, yes,
how
yes.
can you spend so much time and money and effort and resources on Carry
Mhm.
Fest, which is a fact, I cannot find time, or they're not dawn on your mind that something which is so fun going to fundamentally change Barbados way of life and composition of
Yes.
Barbados, that you don't spend any effort for equal presentation to the public. Unbelievable.
Present, and you can make your contribution, your comments, your questions. If we here in the panel, you want to ask us questions, we can try to answer those questions. Or if there's a contribution you wish to make, please go right ahead and make those calls. We'll be looking out for them. 236 7000 WhatsApp. Remember, on WhatsApp, and we'll be happy to hear from you. Yes, Glenn, very quickly before I go to
Yeah,
Rose.
yeah. I believe he said some interesting things
Yes.
which are worth considering and examining. But I think I got the impression underneath of it all, when they analyze it, he is looking for something to believe in, a philosophy,
Yes, yes, yes.
something that would give him guidance. Because
Yeah,
uh,
give
that
him
that was
hope.
said when we were growing up. There was a philosophy about life that helped to guide you, help you advance in life. The governments of that day, the BIP and then the DIP did it, but no, nobody longer talks about democratic socialism.
Mhm.
If you do that, the World Bank and the IMF will run from you, because it's supposed to be communist stuff. Right? Those are the things that brought us out of abject poverty, where the government says there's certain areas of life that we must of necessity take responsibility for the ordinary man, the disadvantaged man. Education, health, housing,
Yes.
roads, those are basic. And there was that philosophy that was government's moral and political and social responsibility. Now we are brought up to believe that those things don't matter, that you belong, you don't believe in that, you just borrow and spend a bill, and every man back for himself.
Mhm.
You work for yourself. That's how we
Yes,
got
yes.
pre-secondary education. That's how we got free health care, delivery, unemployment insurance, all those sort of we recognize the response. Housing, that's what the NHC did. So under both governments did such wonderful work across by improved standard of life. And then under this government has been a disaster, an
Hmm.
embarrassment. One of the Colorado talked about the under 40s and the whole dispute over independence. The dispute over independence was between the Democrat Labor Party said they want to go independent alone. The Barbados Labor Party and the 40s, which comprised some people who became Dems, activists or society felt that we should keep trying for a federation. So there was no dispute about over independence itself, it was just the form it would take. The other thing is that when you
Uh-huh.
reflect on what the young man was saying, he is really expressing a yearning for hope, a future. And
Yes,
not only him on the
yes.
street, a lot of young people, are expressing the same despair that they can see no future. We grew up in an era where there was hope in the education system, there was hope in the political system, create a climate in which you can have hope of getting a job and getting on in life. No, we do not have that that opportunity. And rather than that, when I listened to an extract of what the Prime Minister said in New York yesterday, rather than offering hope of advancement and job, housing and employment, etc. for people, she's talking about, having, when we finish with the gathering this year, next year is road to 60. So we can start celebrating from the end of December, the 1st of January, to next year, celebrating the 60th anniversary of independence, which is next year. So more
All
fetch.
distractions. All distractions.
Those we what we have to remember that when we have these pets, all the fancy equipment and lights, all that's imported, all that's gone on foreign exchange. We are still yet to do anything indigenous, create
Yes.
anything that would give the people, young man, an opportunity to create, to do something, get involved, rather than just superficial battles. And that is correct. The challenge is, and the last thing is, I do not think the present government has many people in it who has the idea of what to do.
Hmm. Hmm.
This is one of
I
the
would.
weakest government intellectually I've ever seen since 1951.
Yes.
I,
I
I,
think.
okay,
I
go
think we
ahead.
have our final. I think we have a final caller. Okay, no. Okay. Sorry, Glenn. Just
No,
yeah. Go ahead
yeah,
and do your wrap
I
up
just
there.
rather say that having been part of a government for 9 years, right? Sitting around cabinet table, or I haven't been a minister in charge of departments and ministries of one. I feel humiliated if I had a call on the star and say, "Give me some ideas of what to do here." You don't know what. I've been
Yeah.
embarrassed to be a person, and so therefore, this government really it doesn't have the capacity in it to generate the kind of ideas to take the country forward. It's 8 years, you're not seeing it.
Yes.
Borrowing and superficial stuff, but we have to get past that. That is the biggest holdup. I'll end of that for now.
Well, thank you so much, Glenn. Appreciate all your input for tonight and another highly educational night. Rose, just a quick wrap up from you because we are at 10 o'clock. So just a quick wrap up.
Well, what you always get last night, right? 10 or 10. You get some
Well,
credit at 10
yeah,
o'clock
but
for?
you gotta remember that last night the boss is sitting in his seat.
But but the boss will understand if a program is
Uh,
doing well, then we have to keep it going for a few more minutes.
well, I'll keep it going for a couple
They
more
call that
minutes, but
they call it
I
they
work,
call that
but you know how it
initiative.
is.